Good evening, Dr. Bush. Welcome once again to your fourth and final program in the series of Pushing the Limits. It's our pleasure to welcome you and to offer this introductory DVD to individuals who may not have been able to attend the sessions. We want to let folks know that Port Clinton was one of 75 libraries nationwide to receive this grant from CALIFA regarding science and its offerings to rural communities. It's a 4-part science-themed discussion series and built around extending science literacy to rural communities. It's been a great pleasure to have your participation and your leadership in this program. Dr. Bush, I wanted to know if you thought if there were a follow-up program, what other topics do you think would work well within this format?
That's a good question. I've given it some thought, and because each time I finish a segment, I think about other things that would be interesting topics to talk about. So in line with the science, it depends on if you were going to do it in line with more science topics or if you were going to change it to maybe, say you had more science, you could do, say, racism, for instance, or you could do a topic on gender. You could do a topic on cultural relativism or ethnocentrism, and those could be done either through science, or if you wanted to try to maybe expand into a different area, you could maybe think about one running with a general theme about culture and how people deal with multiculturalism, which is an issue certainly these days.
How did you like working within the structured program? For example, the overall theme as we see it, and that now that as a culture we are stronger, smarter, more aware of the boundaries within the physical world, and also very much aware that there may be limitless boundaries to our physical world. And the overall theme of real people, real stories, and real science. So once again, how did you like working within the structured program?
The structure was interesting because it's not the typical kind of structure I'm used to doing, but it was certainly a little bit challenging, which I found very, very exciting to work with. And the idea of using a novel to help bring together certain concepts for people to think about, I really have enjoyed doing that.
Dr. Bush, since time began, human beings have been imagining and achieving ways of pushing the limits, if you will, of the physical world. And we've brought about great advances in science and technology. And as humans, I think we find a way to push the limit every day. And as I was a participant in these programs, I was very much aware of the fact that you are just the kind of person the creators of this program had in mind for these offerings to our public. Indeed, combining the novel approach, if you will, of science through fiction. And I wanted to ask, because currently the American Library Association has an ongoing geek program, do you consider yourself a science geek?
Well, I have to admit, I've never been asked if I was a science geek before. I don't know if I would consider myself a science geek. I consider myself a scientist, and I consider myself a humanist in the sense that I'm trying to combine science with a humanistic approach to, in my case, the idea of prisoners of war and how we treat that humanistically. I really thank you for the compliment about being one that's geared for this kind of a program. I do think there are certain types of people that dedicate themselves to trying to do the best they can in whatever pursuit they're after, and we've certainly tried to do that with the sites we've been working on and the investigations of the prisoner of war camp, and trying to make it available for people and trying to make it part of public memory again. So but a science geek, I don't know. I watched the Big Bang Theory, and those guys are science geeks, not me.
Dr. Bush, the use of novels to approach the topics of nature, communication, survival, and knowledge was the focus of the 4-part series. And did the program achieve what you envisioned it would? And did we incorporate science as it pertains to everyday life?
I would say yes. I was starting with the program. It was new to me as well, and I wasn't sure how it was going to unfold. And I've really been pleased with how we've had great discussions during the various topics. One thing I thought about though was, people get their information from a lot of different sources, and there's the internet, and all the different, Wikipedia and all the different sources that are there. There's newspapers, there's magazines, there's radios, there's talk shows, there's all kinds of things that people get information from. So I think it would be maybe good to expand sometimes as well. We talked about expanding the program or doing something different before, and maybe just expanding into some of those other realms as well.
Dr. Bush, for our viewers that may not know, you are a PhD teaching at Heidelberg, and indeed a portion of your career has been dedicated to the dig at Johnson's Island, a Civil War prison. And in that regard, the classroom and in your field work, how does this format differ from what you're used to at teaching at the university level?
It differs quite a bit, and I really like that. I wish that we could have more open discussions in our classrooms where there wasn't quite the focus on grading or quite the focus on having to take tests. It's nice to be able to talk to people and to get their ideas and to hash them out a little bit, and so many things there aren't just black and white answers for anymore. There's a lot of gray area, and you need to understand how you accumulate information and how you accumulate knowledge and how you deal with these issues to come to a resolution that makes sense. And the last session on nature, I think, really brings that all home, in terms of trying to understand the value in not necessarily being so rigid about the approach, but being more open. And I think this is a much more open format, which I really like.
Thank you. And as you mentioned, this is our last segment, and it is indeed about nature. And we look forward to the topic this evening, when the killing is done. And once again, Dr. Bush, it's been our pleasure to have you here at the library and to offer this to our public. I thank you.
Well, thank you, Connie. It's been great being here as well, and I'm glad you guys chose me to do this.
Thank you, sir.